questions to ask, about this. Of course, he had raised the issue before, earlier released a statement that information available to him on the circumstances indicates that Mr. Sani, his aide, was stopped at a checkpoint around Ojodubaja area of Lagos on his way home at Ishere by security agents, it was said, who asked him to provide documents of his car while he was driving. He did that by calling his wife. Maybe he didn't have the documents with him at the time, so he called his wife, who sent it to him, screen grabbed and sent to him on WhatsApp. It was gathered that the wife called a while later, and the late Mr. Sani told her that the soldiers are still checking the vehicle's paper. That was the last she heard from her husband, and the body of Mr. Sani, ridden with bullets, was later discovered at Toyota bus stop area of Oshodi, close to a military barrack. I don't know what to make of this, ladies and gentlemen. An update about the investigation of the murder and armed robbery by the Nigeria Police Force through a statement issued in Abuja. Senator Adeola said he's of the firm belief that based on available facts at the disposal of the police and that his aide was killed by a syndicate of soldiers operating under the newly deployed commander of 9th Brigade Ikeja Cantonment of the Nigerian Army, through mounting of checkpoints and robbing of lone occupants of cars. This is not an allegation or accusation that should be taken lightly, and it is something that I want to believe that the Nigerian Army, will be very, very interested in giving all the attention to. It was just last week or so that we were talking about that altercation between some soldiers and LASTMA officials in Lagos, which we understand, of course, was also a reprisal. How long is this going to go on? I am actually very expectant that the Army is going to speak up about this, because it shouldn't be allowed to lie low.
Well, I believe that the Army has indeed spoken up about it, from our information gathering yesterday. We believe that a statement release says that they're investigating and, they would make the findings of the investigation public. But first of all, let's just commiserate with Mrs. Sani, the wife of the deceased. This is sad. Yet another woman has been bereaved, albeit, under questionable circumstances. So we hope that God grants her the fortitude, and her family the fortitude to bear the loss. But Ayo, you have rightly noted that this is the second time the conduct of officers of the Nigerian Army in Lagos are being called to question. The first being, in 2 weeks, in about 2 weeks, the altercation with men of the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority. By the way, we haven't gotten any feedback yet from the Nigerian Army on the conduct of those officers. Now, while this, we cannot, run ahead of ourselves and make conclusions, but the circumstances are a bit too close for comfort. First, you told us, while you read out the story, that, Mr. Sani was stopped at Ojodubaja, but then his corpse was found later on at Toyota bus stop, close to a military barracks. We must wait for the outcome of this investigation.
Body.
Yes, bullet-ridden body was found close to. We just have to wait for the outcome of the investigation, and we hope that it will be, made public. The true circumstances of the death of Mr. Sani would be unveiled and not be swept under the carpet. We hope that if indeed this has been done by men of the Nigerian Army, they must be brought to account. But then again, if it's also not the story, not the case, all the same, we hope that security agents would, be about their duties in Lagos, particularly in areas that are considered flashpoints. In some areas, you cannot, drive at night, even at certain times of the evening. We hope that that comes to an end. There was a time in Lagos where there was a nighttime economy, but that's not the case at this time. We need that to return so that our businesses can thrive yet again.
Yeah. One of the questions that have to be answered from what you have just said now is, I understand that it's the police that are supposed to be conducting all of these checks. Why is it the soldiers or the army that are conducting those checks? According to the lady, the soldiers were still checking his papers. why is it soldiers?
Why is it soldiers?
Those are the questions. So when you say that the military has responded, I'm wondering, okay, response, really? Or just an assurance that they're doing something about it?
Well, the response in the light of the circumstances is that an allegation has been made here about men of the Nigerian army. So in that regard, I believe that they need to respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Malcolm Chamberlain.
Well, there's very little to add to what you have said, Buki and Ayo. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this particular scenario. First, as Ayo rightly asked, soldiers mounting checkpoints in a place like Lagos, as metropolitan as Lagos. I'm trying to get my, to understand what exactly they're doing there. I can understand them on highways. There have been places where people have complained of kidnapping, and on those kinds of roads, yes, you can expect. But within a metropolis like Lagos, what I'm used to seeing are police people, VIO officers. Those are the people that we're used to, civilians. So what precisely were soldiers doing mounting a checkpoint in a place like Ojudu Burger? I do not know what to say. I mean, is the Nigerian army aware of that? But if this happens to be true, Chamberlain, if indeed, because the evidence is overwhelming, you either will say, okay, maybe they're fake soldiers, people who are posing as soldiers wearing military uniform, or maybe they're soldiers who've gone rogue. And this will not be strange because, I mean, this is not the first time these kinds of things have happened. Nigerian army itself knows that it employs all manner of people. Sometimes, these people can turn rogue whilst they're in uniform. Remember that once we spoke with a former DSS official in our station who was kidnapped once, somewhere around Kogi or Kenya Road. And he told us that some of the people who kidnapped him, and he could confirm this, were soldiers who were on pass. So it's not improbable. And I would not think that what should be the immediate response of the Nigerian military should be denial. I don't think we've seen that yet. I want to believe that what they will do is carry out a thorough investigation. We've heard about, people have talked about SARS. These are some of the things that sprang up and gave rise to NSARS. So now start thinking that soldiers are now, you cannot trust a checkpoint manned by soldiers. I think that the signals are extremely dangerous. So it is important for the Nigerian army not to take these allegations lightly, not just because they've come from a senator, but because of the fact that when people see the army is so much more than just something that defends or an organization that defends our territorial integrity. They are the pride of the Nigerian nation. They're the pride of the Nigerian people. And so when this sort of allegations come through, from the very people whom they ought to protect, I think that the allegations need to be taken very seriously. If there are rogue elements within the Nigerian army, don't forget also this, I'm trying to remember, as I'm speaking, so many more instances are coming to my mind. This Wadume, remember the Wadume case we had, was it in Taraba? A kidnapper and the collaboration which was alleged between soldiers and a kidnapped kingpin. It must, as the Nigerian army, must ruthlessly wield out if indeed these people are found to be soldiers, because I don't think that this should be an investigation that goes on for forever. I believe that this is something that should be tackled with immediate alacrity. If indeed these people are found to be soldiers, they must be ruthlessly wielded and weeded out from the Nigerian army. And not just the Nigerian army, because I believe that this sends a signal also to other security formations, be they paramilitary or, other para-security formations, that if in the space of trying to recruit, a lot of people, because we say that we're deeply short-staffed, and people are found wanting, and they should be ruthlessly dealt with. There should be no sparing of this sort of people. But as Bukola has rightly said, really our deepest condolences to Mrs. Sani and her family.
You know, when I saw this yesterday, it spoiled part of my day. And this morning is attempting to do the same thing because it's very, very annoying, very upsetting. Because, I mean, time and again, people go to work, they try to do what they can, and then they'll go home, they're tired, sometimes really they just want to go home and forget about the hassles, you know, from wherever they're coming from, only to be stopped by all sorts of people in uniform on our roads. All sorts. They ask you for all sorts of things. And it's not every time that people are in the mood for that. I mean, people who you're supposed to trust, they're supposed to be there for you, and then they're asking for all sorts of things. And because that particular scenario could have been anybody, you know, who was driving on the roads. Indeed. You might have had a very bad day, and you just want to go, I just want to go home. And they're asking you for your license, they ask you for all sorts of things. And, you know, and then if he was not an aide to Senator Adeola now, maybe, just maybe, we may never have even heard of it. Because people will see the body on the road and think, oh, okay, maybe it was, who knows what happened. And that's how this might have ended, because this kind of things, you see bodies everywhere, not just in Lagos, different parts of the country. You see people in uniform act with impunity. And it is this kind of attitude that deadens the conscience of Nigerians when they try to do things for several other people. Look, we cannot just continue living our lives like this. And that's why sometimes you just wonder, yeah, it will have its disadvantages if everyone were to be licensed to legally bear arms, and will these kind of things be happening? People who you know ordinarily, look, it's just so upsetting because at the end of the day, this life is gone. It's not going to come back. And then look at the story. His body was riddled with bullets. Not just one, bullets. And then they just dumped the body. Because, I mean, yeah, if you see those persons on the road, you don't know they are proper military officers or not. Even if the police approaches them, they might open fire, then there might be another escalation, and then something happened, then it will be police versus the army. What kind of society? We can't run a society like this. We just cannot. And then tomorrow they turn to civilians and say, please volunteer information because we need to. How? How?
Or support.
Like this?
I want to believe that, you know, there will be an investigation. There will be a thorough investigation done on this. I don't think it will be one of those that, because these allegations are grievous. They are grievous. At the Nigerian army, I mean, we're used to so many other agents. Nigerian army?
It's really very, very, it's very sad.
I can't believe this.
And then, why must you always be on the road to fight? What happens to intelligence gathering? This country spends billions on intelligence services and agencies and officers, and then you see this? Why are we spending all that amount of money if this is the way you gather? Look, guys, it's just...
There's something off with that checkpoint. I think that there needs to be a lot of explaining to do, and I sincerely hope that very soon we will hear from the army authorities.
It's very sad, really. We hope that they will address it. And let's just go ahead and take you through some of the dailies this morning. I just try to see how I can, you know, gather myself and take you through some of these ones here today, because this is... Nobody wants to see that kind of story. Family is waiting for the father or the mother to come back, and then you see this. Look at Leadership newspaper this morning. Tinubu to ministers. Get to work. Nigerians won't tolerate failure. Warns cabinet members against regional politics. Ministers unveil policy directions. Now they need to speak up properly and talk to the people. What do you intend to do? How do you intend to move this forward? Not that they call them and then they're acting as though, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. Please focus on jobs and do it and just get down to work. Illegal structures will go down in FCT. Wike vows, says he got PDP's nod to serve in APC government. First FEC meeting holds on Wednesday. So That's what you see right here. I'm trying to look at what another one makes sense here. Governor Sani slashes fees in Kaduna tertiary schools. Oh, okay. Of course, you'll have it. Many people will definitely welcome this. Whatever can help anyone have a better life is always welcome. So, but perhaps you should pick up the story because the welfare of the teachers themselves, I'm sure they should also have it in their plan. Well, that is it with leadership this morning.
Well, this Nigeria is what I'm looking at now, and look at what they have for you on the front page. Of course, the story that made headlines yesterday: serve Nigeria, not your state or region. Tinubu charges new ministers. FCT Minister Wike, I will step on toes, vows to restore Abuja master plan. AGF Fagbemi warns against insubordination as Lukobiri promises to increase oil production. The story is on page 4, or pages 4 and 21 for you. You also have a number of other stories right there. FIRS to prosecute defaulting shipping companies over outstanding tax returns. Federal government shifting debt burden on manufacturers through multiple taxations, according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And look who's poking holes in our forex reserves. The bank, which we understand the CBN has an account with, JP Morgan. JP Morgan estimates Nigeria's FX reserve at $3.7 billion lower. $3.7 billion lower. Are we, cooking up the figures now? Yeah, lower than what we say it is. Page 21 is where the story is, and it's on the front pages.
Wait.
I mean, it's all over the headlines. So I hope that the Central Bank of Nigeria responds to this.
Somebody's been lying to Nigerians, or what?
Is it a possibility that the Central Bank is lying to us, perhaps to show up confidence? And this is now coming from the outside? Okay.
Wonders never cease.
Page 21 is where you find details. Looks like you're going to be seeing new negotiators now. Subsidy. Tinubu directs Lalong Onyejocha to negotiate with organized labor. Yes, they directly belong in the Ministry of Labor. That's where they are. I'm convinced soldiers robbed hailed my aid. Senator Adiola cries out.
Soldiers are now robbers?
It cannot be. It can. I refuse. I don't know. Nigerian Army needs to ensure that this story is investigated. It has to be investigated as quickly as possible. And you also see this. Obi refutes alleged coalition talks with Kwankwanso Atiku. That story is also right there. Well, I took almost all the stories, if not all of them, on the front page of this Nigeria. I couldn't. The picture itself doesn't tell a story. So leave it there for this Nigeria.
And the Daily Trust is what I have next for you this morning. Of course, it also trails the inauguration of the new ministers yesterday. But this time around, it runs through their commitments to service upon inauguration. Stakeholders set agenda as ministers assume office. Illegal houses will go. That's the new minister of the FCT. So a new sheriff is in town for you, Chamberlain and Malkwe. I won't lie to defend government. That's ascribed to the new Minister of Information, Idris. I'll pursue rule of law. That's the new Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Fagbemi. Decent employment underway. That's the Minister of Labor and Unemployment, I believe, former governor of Plateau State. I'm sure Nigerians will hold you by your word. And of course, on many other fronts, with negotiations with Labor, with ASU, Nigerians are waiting. And lastly, of the riders, I'll hold you responsible. That's the president. And of course, he has charged them to serve the country and not their states or their region. That's the big story, but there are quite a number of other stories that will catch your interest. Of course, Malpe and Chamberlain have gone over JP Morgan's revelation. It's also under the nameplate here. JP Morgan puts Nigeria's FX reserves at $3.7 billion. There's also this one from yesterday, governorship poll, tension in Kano as tribunal reserves judgment. And we saw that protest in Kano State yesterday, but the state government has intervened, promising that it will be resolved. And lastly, troops rescue another Chibok girl. You know, it was cheery to note, but just as depressing. How many years of Mary Nkeki's life has been taken away by insurgency? Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspaper.
The Vanguard newspaper has on its front page the same big story. Everyone is talking about Tinubu to ministers. Serve Nigeria, not regions or states. Stories on page 5 directs Lalong Onyejocha to negotiate with organized labor over subsidy removal. Promises to protect Nigerians, guarantee their dignity. Ministers begin work, report at ministries. Your house will go down if you violate municipal planning laws, Wike tells Abuja residents. AGF Fagbemi warns against delays of files. That's the lead story of the paper this morning. Right above the nameplate, 77 trillion naira debt may stall Tinubu's economic plan. That's according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Details of that on page 19. Niger were more likely to use force. That's ascribed to ECOWAS. Find the details of that on page 9. Well, I don't know what you make of this, Mr. and Mrs. Malpe. Henceforth, do not stop my mother from doing anything she feels like doing in this house. Do I make myself clear? That's Mr. telling Mrs. And Mrs. responds, backing Mr. Let me make myself clear first. Mama insisted on cooking your meal. She was about to use engine oil when I stopped her. She became angry and said she has been using imported cooking oil before I was born. That's Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Well, he asked you because I cannot go to market and buy engine oil to cook.
What was engine oil doing in the kitchen? What was engine oil doing in the kitchen?
Because
in the
desperate times. Oh dear. Take a look at the Guardian newspaper here this morning. Operators unsettled over Tinubu's hold, in parenthesis, on Petroleum Ministry. What is unsettling operators, please? Haven't former presidents been holding on to this as well? Well, maybe you should go ahead and see it and find out what unsettles them this time. But I think, interestingly, you have petroleum resources, then you have gas. So probably with that CNG component and all that talk about CNG and gas, so maybe you might just have this, give it a lot of verve, kind of drive probably that it does require, while the petroleum resources too, who knows. So there you go. But NAPCL is still NAPCL. All right. Yeah, they have several others. Let me see, which one is here? INEC and disturbing threats to November polls. Well, that's an editorial. They're projecting or forecasting that inflation rates will go a little higher now. It's also here. So the managers of the economy have got their work cut out for them, which is part of what we'll focus on this morning, because everybody needs the economy to be in good shape. So, fold your sleeves. Remember, no excuses. That's the Guardian.
Well, take a look at New Telegraph here, and the lead story you see, Tinubu to ministers, you're to serve Nigeria, not region, states. That's right there. Says country battling daunting challenges, urges them to restore public hope in governance. We won't tell Nigerians lies, Information Minister says. I'm in Abuja to work, not fly party flag, according to Wike. Says demolition of illegal structures inevitable. The story, all the stories, stories on pages 2, 5, and 6. Oh, really? I mean, you must admit this new Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, the real side for sore eyes. Looking up right there on top of the nameplate, oil producing states got 193.99 billion naira in first quarter 2023 amid decayed infrastructure. Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt to dominate Africa's gas supply market from 2023. You'll find details somewhere on pages 3 and 4 at that.
We should be positioned for that, shouldn't we? Should be.
Okay, now there's another angle to this JP Morgan story. I think New Telegraph is saying they put Nigeria's net reserves at 3.7 billion. But I do not want to. I will check my CBN's word. Okay, so CBN, precisely where is our forex reserves? Can you tell us where precisely it is at? Okay, because 3.7 billion. If you remove all of our debts, I guess that's what they're doing. That cannot be. That cannot be. Okay? But a lot to talk about, Chamberlain. Yeah. So much to talk about. Absolutely. If you look at the bottom here, gunmen abduct 8 Sokoto-bound NYC members, driver along Zamfara Road. Okay, this is something for all of us to worry about. Gunmen abduct 8 Sokoto-bound NYC members, driver along Zamfara Road. We must do everything in our power to get them back. People cannot lose faith in the NYC system. We also saw the situation yesterday. I think it was reported that in Ibadan, a young corps member who had reported for orientation had filmed his hostel. And, and said, what did he say now? Said something about, is this where he's going to stay for the next 3 weeks? It was on Twitter. And we understand that he was decamped. I think that the NYC will tell us why. If there is something against people talking about the camps, that's... Okay, yes, I think he also said scrap NYC now. So... I think young people too need to be careful. I mean, you can't be reporting for something and then be asking that it be scrapped. There's a time and place for every protest. But at the same time, is the offense, if it was an offense, was it grievous enough for him to have been decamped? This is something that we need to mull over. But more importantly, I mean, this story about 8 Sokoto-bound NYC members, I think that, there needs to be some investigation and a very strong attempt to get them back as quickly as possible.
Some of those men have swung into action, but we'll continue with the checks.
Yeah.
Concerning the information we have on what they're doing about that exactly.
And somebody speaking here, hunger, Nigeria's biggest challenge now. That's according to Kiari, talking about, I think, as a new Minister for Agriculture. Right there, pages 5 and 6 will tell you more about what the ministers said as they resumed office yesterday. You'll find all of the details there. And we'll leave it there for New Telegraph.
Our attention next to Daily Independent this morning. It takes a complete detour from, the main fanfare of the ministerial inauguration yesterday, to, trail on something quite interesting. Telecom operators lose over 6 million subscribers in 6 months. That's just one rider there. Record 785 billion naira as capital expenditure in 2022. So what exactly is responsible for this? There's some detail on the front page saying that according to the telecom industry statistics, the figure showed that 6.11 of million mobile subscribers were lost between January and June 2023. Now, is it due to the Japa syndrome, so many Nigerians exiting the country? Because I'm curious. And it also comes, with a number of other implications as well. The need to include more Nigerians in the banking system, and which can, only be enabled sufficiently by the use of telecommunications. So I'm wondering what exactly is responsible for the loss, Ayo? Perhaps you could also weigh in on this.
6 million.
6 million
numbers,
subscribers.
And then it's due to Jackpot. Come on, girl.
So
I don't even think anyone who left the country for one reason or the other, I don't think many of them left their numbers because of their WhatsApp.
I'm just curious.
Well, we have to look into the details of the story to know why. Don't also forget that there have been pressure on the telcos to audit their database, just to be sure that we really have the numbers that we claim to have. There are X number of numbers that are active, X number that are dormant, X number that are not so active. Don't also forget that a good number of people have more than one phone number, phone line. So those things, may have their way of coming out. But I'm pretty sure that when we look in the details of the story,
we'll understand it better.
Yeah.
There are quite a number of other stories. Look at this one right under the big story. Suspended Adamawa Rec petitions NBA over planned disciplinary action. That's a page 7 read. And then there's this one also. I chose solid mineral ministry. I have passion for it. That's the new Minister of Solid Minerals that everyone thought would have been deployed to the Ministry of Information, as Mr. Dele Alaki is speaking there. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
The Daily Times newspaper has this on its front page, also talking about the ministers. I'll step on toes, demolish buildings, no matter who owns them. Wike vows, the story you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. That picture you see on the front page there, you may need to look at the rider to really understand what's going on. It's that of a young lady who is now married to a Boko Haram fighter. Well, the details you'll find on the front page if you pick up a copy today. Job scammers dupe victims of 765 million naira in Delta, 5 nabbed. What does all that mean? You find the details on the inside pages. What's this last one?
Oh dear.
Increase allowances to your wives. That's subscribed to the AIG. Find out what that means on page 5 of the paper this morning. And the Daily Times newspaper brings to a close a look at some of the dailies this morning. We're back right after now to take on one of the big stories you have. Do stay with us.
The conference hall of the presidential villa is filled to capacity. It's the swearing-in ceremony of the newly appointed ministers. They're here with members of their families, the governors, and officials of the different ministries. The program kicks off with the arrival of the president and the vice president. With them is the leadership of the National Assembly and the secretary to the government of the Federation. The first minister to have his citation read is the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Then, in batches of 5, the ministers take their oaths of office and have a handshake with the president. The process goes on without a hitch as each minister is recognized. Done with the swearing-in process, the president congratulates them and reminds them of how the experience and expertise they've garnered could help the country.
We have the opportunity to implement long overdue reform that will improve the operations of government, transform our nation's economy, and ensure peace, safety, and prosperity for our people.
The president told the ministers to serve with integrity and dignity.
I believe in you that the government can be a positive force for transformation and a vehicle for collective progress of this country. You are not a minister of a particular state, colony, region, or ethnic nationality. You are a Minister of Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The president's speech signals the end of the ceremony. The ministers share their thoughts on the task ahead.
We should expect this ministry to focus on policies and regulations that is not only there to stifle or regulate, just to regulate, but policies and regulations that will open up opportunity for more technology entrepreneurs to actually build technology businesses.
We want to ensure and see the growth of our SMEs. The SME is the lifeblood of the economy. So we are hopeful that with the ideas, with the trust of this government, that will see that happen.
As the newly sworn-in ministers leave this hall, they say they are very clear that Nigerians expect a lot from them and that they will do everything within their power to deliver and ensure that Nigerians experience the benefits that Nigeria can't give. From the conference hall of the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back. Yes, Jonathan Aremu, Professor of International Economic Reforms, Relations, beg your pardon, and then he's a former Acting Assistant Director of Research with the CBN. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, sir.
Well, now that all the ministers have been sworn in, yes, the economy is key. And so we're trying to look at some of these policies that the president has announced, what we expect of the ministers, and then what we expect of the results, as a matter of fact. But there's this little matter, which we picked up this morning with the dailies about a certain JP Morgan saying that Nigeria's net foreign reserves fell to $3.7 billion as of 2022, contrary to $36.61 billion quoted by the CBN. And many wonder, what is going on with this? I mean, on what basis would they be making this kind of statement? So how do we relate to this kind of information in the first instance?
Well, good morning, viewers, and good morning, Madam and Chamberlain. I heard it this morning as well. As a former staff of Central Bank of Nigeria, I don't want to comment on that because the real figure of the reserve of Central Bank, which is the traditional function of Central Bank, it should come from the mouth of Central Bank, not from external person. So to me, I think that until we hear from Central Bank, that information, I don't think I believe in it, from whatever source is coming. And so that's just my own position about it.
Indeed.
Because it looks frightening, and I don't think it must have gone to that kind of a level. Let me say this one, but before you get to that kind of level, there will have been signal from Central Bank, which I know very well, from World Bank and IMF, and people would have heard. So where the JP Morgan is getting this one, I'm not aware.
Okay. It's a good thing you say that, because some people will say, has there been any time when, the central bank has had cause to pad up, our FX reserves, or to say that they were not where they say they were at?
There's no need for central bank to tell lies, because there is absolutely no reason, because it's right in charge of managing it. Well, for what purpose will central bank be telling lie? I don't see any. I don't know. You see, but I think the best thing is to allow the sleeping dog to lie in that one, because to me, I don't think.
You think it's important that central bank comes out to speak on it?
Well, CBN may not want to drag itself into all those information if they discover that it's just lie, because that will lead to unnecessary discussion and diversion of attention from the good management of monetary policies of the economy.
It's coming from an external body, a body as reputable as JP Morgan, and you've seen in recent times how...
Is that body charged to be able to announce our foreign reserve?
Yes, maybe not, but what I'm saying is in recent times we've seen the CBN just put out its own accounts, its own books, I think, and we found out that the CBN does have an account with JP Morgan.
I agree.
So in the light of that, do you think it is important that the CBN comes out very clearly to either refute this or state what the true position of things are?
Thank you, Madam. It's not a query to Central Bank. It was their own position. So there's no need for Central Bank to actually answer to that kind of a thing where it's not a query. That's their position.
They can't query central bank. I mean,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's certainly not a query, but this borders on confidence of Nigerians and also of investors.
Yeah, everybody feel frightening. I mean, including me. But seriously speaking, just as I said at my opening statement, I don't want to make comment on what I don't know. Central bank, with its traditional function, in terms of managing the macroeconomic policy objective of this country, which essentially are four. There are more unemployment issue, price level, external and development. So, and most importantly, the external reserves, external stability. So CBA has not come out to actually tell us, and I say this and I say it again, when the reserve level of an economy is going down, it's likely that you have an alert from the IMF. Right? And then the IMF will come in and they're making a lot of stable arrangement to be able to shore up that economy. We have not had this one. So where is this information coming from? So
I think this might help, if I could just quote this bit. It says, based on partial information from the audited financial accounts, we estimate that CBN's net forex reserves were around $3.7 billion at the end of last year from $14 billion at end 2021, quote. Perhaps that could put it in proper perspective for a lot of people.
Since it's still a suggestion,
it's still something information
based on certain information which has not been verified adequately well. So I think it's better we just allow it to stay like that, because even the information that you are saying does not specifically say that that is the true position.
But this notwithstanding, though, we know that the economy, we're trying to stave off a lot of the tough times that several Nigerians are facing economically. And we've seen this government announce several policies, from taxation to several policies to ensure that people, at least the pressure they feel is reduced. Now we have the ministers who have been sworn in, and many are just waiting to see them come up and get down to work. So from your perspective, what would you expect to see? Because I think Mr. Edu is coordinating Minister of the Economy. So what do you expect to see from those who manage that sector? As a matter of fact.
Well, I'm happy to hear from the president this morning, as reported in the paper, that get down to work, because there's so much work to do. So I think and I made mention of the basic macroeconomic policy objective of the country. Number one, getting people employed, growth of the GDP, so that the welfare of the people can actually increase. That's number two. And number three is the issue of price stability. And then lastly, external stability with respect to external balance. That is to be able to make sure that your money, which you are having reserved, does not fall below a level that is not going to be able to support the national economy in its trading and investment activities. So I think that essentially those are the basic things which the new government have to be aware of. More importantly is the fact that we are facing banditries and settled environment instead of quite a lot of... I just heard on the news when I was coming here that they kill somebody. All these things have to stop. So I think each of the ministers know that there's a lot of work to be done. And the president was good enough to say, get down to work. There's so much work to be done. And Nigeria are more informed now than before. They will query anybody. Yeah, because, people cannot be living, but people that have been living about 40, 50 years, and they know what they were joining. When I joined Central Bank, the HMD was about 1.6 to 1.7 dollars to a naira. And you know what it is now? I'm talking of 1980. I'm still living in the country, and then looking at this one, it's not something that is okay. Nobody is happy about it. So we need to be able to actually see. I'm not saying we should go back to that exchange rate, but we need to be able to make sure that things are okay. So both fiscal and monetary policy have to be able to shake hands now. And then that's why the president was saying that don't actually be more or less paying attention to where you come from. It's your country, the entire country is where you come from now. And I think I hope that the minister will act to that kind of challenge, because there's a huge thing to be done.
That will spark several emotions if we ask ourselves, so how did we even get here from that point up until now? So let me just move on to another point. But can we achieve, because I look at all the analysis, all the points, the figures from everywhere, different parts of the country, can we actually get anywhere close to where we are, where we want to be, without us addressing the question of power supply?
That's a very good question, very important, very, very important. I've addressed this issue many times. When President Obasanjo was coming, I was on Channel 10 Lagos, and then they said, what is the greatest thing you would like to address Obasanjo if he gets here? I said, that is a very simple thing. When God was to create heaven and earth, he said, let there be light. So any government coming in now must make sure there is light, because you can't be wiser than God anyway. So there must be light. Light to be able to see, light to be able to make sure that the productive activities are working well. So the issue of light is very central. And God knows this. So, I mean, if we are not wiser than God, I think we need to make sure that there's have to be light for factories, for people, for everything. Look, if light is available in this economy, power, quite a lot of problems will be solved. Baba will be able to do his job. So small and medium-scale enterprises will be able to be working. Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, I heard they are saying something now. They will not be talking. Yeah, but lack of power has actually stagnated the expected productivity of the economy. And as we are going to go, I don't know whether you include it. I mean, if it's the issue of African continental free trade area. We may not be able to compete very well if we don't have that. And economic integration without productivity is a waste, because you're already losing revenue from the tax you are removing. Then we have you are not productive to be able to make sure you show up your production level, to be able to compensate for the tax you are not going to collect. Then you have wasted your time.
So when you hear a position such as the coordinating minister of the economy, what ministries do you think he most likely would need to work with?
I think we have had that in the past, in which Ministry of Finance has been given that responsibility. And I think it's quite a very good decision. Why? Because money is used to be able to navigate through every economic activity in the economy. And therefore, who is the minister that is in charge? Is the Ministry of Finance. So we can see transparently, where policy have to shake hands, where money will have to be put together to be able to ensure that this is well done. Over the years, certain activities of that ministry has more or less been filtered down, as even some agencies under it. I think that kind of a thing should be brought back, because Ministry of Finance should actually be the coordinating minister. And you see the names of the current the general of WTO. I'm talking of Okonjo Iweala. When he was coordinating minister, he did excellently well. And number one, Nigeria paid his debt by significant amount, turning the Apple Times. Apple Times was a decision taken earlier that helped some country, and she quoted it. And because you cannot treat one country different from another, the global economy has no reason to be able to say no. They have to accept what he said. And Nigeria used the Apple Times to reduce our debt burden. You see, so when we have a minister that have that kind of foresight, clearly speaking, why not? And she was Minister of Finance. So I think a Minister of Finance can be a very good position to do that.
Indeed. I'm just saying, because when you look at the fact that you've spoken to the Ministry of Power being very vital to the revitalization of the economy, oftentimes when people think of a coordinating minister of the economy, they're thinking of somebody who's just looking at the economy basically. For instance, you've talked about how fiscal and monetary policy need to shake hands.
Yes.
Basically, that's where they're looking at all the coordination ending. Yeah. Do you think that it incorporates so much more?
Ministry of Power cannot be that, my sister. No, Ministry of Power does not have that. I earlier talk of the basic macroeconomic policy objective. And you discover when you're talking of employment, therefore which are to be there, you are talking of productivity, GDP, you are talking of the external sector, and you are talking of price level. I mean, when you look at all those four basic macroeconomic policy objectives, you discover that at one thing or the other, the Federal Ministry of Finance is responsible for substantial aspects in its operation. The power is just totally limited to supply of an infrastructure, which is not the only infrastructure anyway, but the key infrastructure. So you can't give to Ministry of Power, no. As important as power is, cannot be. So I think the presidency is right. By allocating that coordinating activity to Ministry of Finance.
Okay. Well, we'll see, but for you, what would you say? Because I know that you're also at the NESG and you done some work there. Only
made up of think tank of individuals to put themselves together. So we write, and then we have other policy commissions. We have about 15 other policy commissions, and then we join all these policy commissions together and advise the government. I think tomorrow and then next day we are equally going to meet to be able to actually put our papers together to make sure things are okay. But we are not the one to implement. Each government has the freedom to be able to do what they want. But we'll continue making sure that we give policy direction. So by my own position, what are the hanging fruits? What are the things that are very important? Number one, everybody knows. Number one, there's need harmonization of fiscal and monetary policy so that there can be confidence in both areas. See, central bank activity, as well as what is happening at the revenue collection area, then that have to be put together because that one will create confidence in the money we are using to spend. And then also is the fact that the issue of trade and investment. Now, because, see, we need to be able to trade. Our production have to be high. But I congratulate the new minister in that particular place, but he has to make sure that those three policies shake hands together so that industry where we have comparative advantage, investor we have to actually be drafted to that area, and then our trade activity we have to go to both national, regional, that's at ECOWAS, and continental.
That feeds into why man says multiple taxation, power and poor sales are some of the top challenges that they face. That if they can address that, then probably they should be in good stead. All right, let's bring in our colleagues from Lagos.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Let me begin, Prof, by asking you a quick follow-up on the question Mark asked about the coordinating minister of the economy. This sentiment it sends is that certain ministers are going to be reporting to the Minister of Finance and who is the coordinating minister of the economy. Is that the case? And if that were not the case, if that's the case, which ministers? If that's not the case, then what's he coordinating? How is he coordinating the ministry? How is he going to perform as coordinating minister of the economy? He's not the only coordinating minister, so just how is it likely to work?
Well, I think I said this earlier on that we have been having coordinating ministers before. And the coordinating minister does not mean that he's more superior to other ministers. It's only coordinated to make sure that activities within the economy, they are done in a way in which there is policy coherence. And then that is, maybe you can call him coherent minister. So I think that is the real thing. And as much as possible, I think that is in order. From me, I think that's in order. But it's not that one minister is superior to the other minister. Not at all. It's just to be able to make sure that what one minister is doing is what another one is supporting. So there's some sort of, it's not competitiveness, competing, but complementing each other. I think that is the essence of the coordinating activity. So that you can actually see what is happening in one ministry and this is happening in another ministry, and make sure that all of them fall in line with the policy objective of not only the current government, but with our national development plan. So I think that's what I can see about it. It's not a new thing at all.
All right, sir. But there's this other troubling issue, which the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has joined its voice to, along with many others who have raised the issues, about the 77 trillion naira debt, which, according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, may stall the president's economic plan. Of course, you also know that in the previous administration, they said we don't have a debt problem, we have a revenue problem. So exactly how do you see this playing out?
Well, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, I'm very, very close to them for quite some time, starting from the Economic Partnership Agreement with European Union days, 2004. they have their own positions to take. That 77 trillion naira, which you are talking about, seriously, I cannot actually defend it. I'm not aware of it. But they have reasons to be able to have their positions. Why? Because productivity in Nigeria is nosediving at a time when it should actually be shunning off, at a time when it should be coming up, so that we can meet not only the national demand for the product that is being manufactured in Nigeria, but we can equally produce and allow our product to enter ECOWAS market and the emerging African continental free trade area market. So, they have the basis for their fears, but I think this is another time in which they need to actually come out to be able to support what is happening, to make sure that government do the right thing they need to do. And I think that is what I can say. They conduct research. They have a lot of respectable personalities that are doing a beautiful job there. But at the same time, I cannot join their figure to say that I believe in that figure as well, because I'm not part of the, those people that calculated the figure for them.
Well, Mr. Aremu, let's look at other areas briefly, i.e. ministries of education, health, and quite a number of people have enthused about the introduction of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs into the Ministry of Poverty Alleviation, rather, into the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. What reforms do you expect to see in these ministries, particularly because many have tied that also to the success in the fight against insecurity in the many parts of the country, because Nigeria has invested so much in security to no avail. Would you like to see particularly an increase in these fundings to these other areas such that we stop treating the symptoms but rather targeting the root cause of insecurity?
Yeah, thank you, madam. Insecurity is a serious problem in Nigeria, and it's something which nobody is happy about. We are just hearing new terrible ones on a daily basis at a time where we need the safety environment for productivity increase, where we need safety environment for other issues of the economy to work well. Where you make mention of about some ministries, which I just want to make some comment about. Our incoming ministers into health, into education, they need to equally understand that beyond actually making sure that they take position in all these areas, there's a need to be able to see what they can do to put in place policies that can actually go into what Africa is doing with respect to education. What is Africa doing? Both health and education. They are in what we say trading services, which means services can actually be traded. What do I mean by trading in services? See, there are 4 modes of services being traded. Under education, education can travel over internet to another country, or people can come and enjoy education in Nigeria, or some educational facility can actually be of Nigeria can go into another African country in terms of setting up a university there, or the temporary movement of service provider in the educational sector. And this is why we make money for Nigeria. Though both education and health, which you mentioned, they are not in the priority sector, but anytime from now, we are going to enter the 7 other sectors, apart from the 5 priority sectors, which African Continental is working upon. So our ministers in this area should be able to see beyond only Nigeria and make sure that at the time when they open up the rate of the 7 trading services sector in Africa, under African Continental Free Trade Area, Nigeria is best positioned to be able to do that and make money from it. Well, and then apart from that, you are talking about should money actually go into that sector? Obviously, money have to go there. And then with respect to security, well, there's no amount of money that is too big for security, because without security, other economic activity cannot actually work. But again, over the year, and you are aware of it, you ask the question, that substantial money of security go into other hands not meant for security. I think that anyone that is in charge of security this time around, President said that Nigerians are watching. I think people are more informed than before now. So I think everybody, all the ministers that have been given one portfolio or the other, should do that work It refers to the fact that Nigeria are watching them, so that the money that are allocated are effectively used for the entire nation.
Indeed, and that's very instructive. Another key ministry, Prof, is the Ministry of Agriculture. And about a month back, the president declared a state of emergency on food security. And some of the reforms are expected in that regard, according to the press briefing by the president's former spokesperson and now minister, was that they were going to deploy funds from the fuel subsidy removal to that ministry, and that it was now going to be moved under the National Security Council. What sort of collaboration would you like to see between that ministry and the state governors? And also not forgetting also that they have announced that they're going to move some of the programs under the CBN to the states. So what form of collaboration would you like to see there, such that the price of foodstuff can be brought down significantly?
Thank you very much for that question, Madam. I think this is an area of interest even to me myself, not because I've done some research in that area on the food security and safety in Nigeria, but as a result of the fact that over the years, our activities towards food production in Nigeria has not actually been unidirectional in focusing on only production. Let me say this. There are 4 things which I want us to remember here. Number 1, when you are talking of agric, and then the value chain, you should be talking about first, the input into agriculture. Number 2, you should be talking about production in agriculture. Number 3, you should be talking of processing in agriculture. And number 4, you should be talking of tradable agricultural products. It is when you actually combine all this one that you can expect much of agricultural productivity in the country. You concentrate on input that will enhance production. And after the production, you spend money for processing, right? And then with that processing, you can actually enter the regional and continental market and even the world market. You see, but focusing on say that, we want to have paddy rice produced now without producing. I mean, for God's sake, well, how long shall we concentrate in primary produce and not processing? And what is actually delaying us from entering the global market, the continental market with our agricultural products? So I think that the new minister in that particular area should concentrate on 4 things. Number 1, investment into the input, investment into production, investment into processing, so that we don't just be selling things without processing, and then investment to what make those products to be tradable. So, and then also making sure that in terms of tradability, we have to follow the SPS position of the World Bank. For your product to be able to enter international market, it must actually follow certain processes so that other people will not reject it. Over the years, some of our food products have been rejected in some countries. And that's because we have not applied the principles of the WTO, TBT, and SPS to it. So I think that the new minister should be able to make sure that we comply with all those guidance and standards.
All right, just one more thing as we wind down, because, I mean, in spite of all the previous government did about, I think they always talked about doing business, improving the business environment of the country. Recently, some companies have exited Nigeria. Multinational companies have been here for decades. I mean, some of them say unpredictability and difficulty, the macroeconomic environment, issues of acute shortage of forex, depreciation of the naira, cost of energy, limited supply of electricity, all of this, they took a battering. And local investors, too, are feeling the same pinch. So, yes, they put in place a team to ensure multiple taxation is addressed. I think the first 30 days that the committee is working hard to ensure that that happens. So how are you optimistic that, look, yes, in the first 30 days, the kind of policies that they should come up with to have a direct impact on local businesses, because people are losing jobs on a regular basis?
Well, all the points you are talking, they are points on everybody to see. Quite a lot of companies. I was sad during the first guided trade initiative for African continental free trade area, in which 8 countries participated. Nigeria could not.
Why?
Yeah, because we are not prepared yet to be able to participate.
Oh, wow.
And sad again because Exide Battery, this is the company I was familiar with my time in Central Bank. One of the companies I visited, I was in charge of foreign investment survey when I was in CBN. These are the companies we visit, we see all of them, but today, any of them are not producing well. Ghana wanted to buy battery for its car manufacturing product. Exide manufacturer in Nigeria, but they have to buy in Kenya. Why? Because the one in Nigeria cannot actually meet the production quality and every other thing, maybe, or maybe it has been folded up. I mean, for God's sake, is that the kind of environment we wanted? Quite a lot of factories, which I know, in the industrial estate in Kenya, in Transamadi, in Port Harcourt, as well as in Pompai, Chalawa, and Sharada industrial estate in Kano. I go there of recent, I don't meet them again. So, quite a lot of them are relocating. Look, if companies are not, they are not philanthropists. Once they discover that they are not getting what they wanted, they can shift. And their shifting will not cost them much in terms of market. What do I mean? If they shift into other ECOWAS countries, they can still use ECOWAS trade liberalization to sell it to Nigeria. So we lose. I mean, yeah, because under ECOWAS trade liberalization,
we can't stop them from doing it.
You cannot stop them.
Wow.
Yeah, Dunlop. Where is Dunlop now? If Guinness moved from Ikeja now to Ghana, it can still sell to Nigerian market.
I saw Michelin in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah, I mean, so what we are saying now is that we just have to make sure we are doing something that is right. The good thing about Nigeria is that we have the market, and normally, factory we first of all want to come to Nigeria because you talk of something like localization of industry, where the factor is, I mean, where the market
Points of origin?
Yeah, I mean, we have, and then we have substantial potential to be able to develop some of these factories. But if other agents, other things that we allow productivity to be there is not there.
All right. As a former Minister of Agri, Mr. Adesina, Dr. Adesina will always say, you don't eat potential. So we need to do something more about that one. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan Aremu is a professor of international economic relations, a former acting assistant director of research with the CBN. We'll be back in a moment and talk about security, an equally important component in the entire scheme of things. Stay on with us. As you've seen, the Honorable Kabiru Amadou joins us next. He's a member representing Gusau Safe Federal Constituency in Zamfara State. He joins us virtually. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, you have consistently spoken up about the challenges, security-wise, what is going on, what we need to do to ensure that we at least stave off all of these threats in Zamfara and its environs. But only recently, the report came through that about some core members, 8 of them, even though the report indicated there were actually 11, 3 escaped. And so this is an incident that the core is dealing with at the moment, along several other issues. So from what you had observed previously and what is currently going on now, what efforts can you say is on ground? Has anything improved whatsoever?
Okay, thank you for having me, and good morning, viewers. Like I spoke the other time, the security situation in Zamfara State is no longer a breaking news. It is always happening there and then in the entire state. Like I said the other time, we expect more from the security agencies, which I think recently we got a lot of responses from the military or from the entire security in the state. I think recently even the visit of the Chief of Army Staff is really encouraging, and we are happy the way he came to Zamfara State. I think not only Zamfara State, I think the whole of Northwest. So he was here, and I discussed with our governor deeply about the problems, the solutions, way out, and the urgent intervention or the attention that Zamfara State need. Which he promised us that we will see changes within 2, 3 to 5 weeks. God willing, he is trying to make all necessary arrangements to see how he can channel almost all his resources, his ideas, and everything, equipment and what have you, to Zamfara State, so that he can be able to come to our rescue and what have you. And the reason why the attacks is always high is because the bandits want us to respond to their requests. They have a request that they want us to come on the table, or they want a negotiated, which we believe it's not a way out, considering that previous government tried that in all angles, but it didn't work. So they are trying to scare people by carrying out intermittent attacks all the time, every day, kidnap here, kill there, go there, and there. And again, another thing, they took advantage of the rainy season, considering that there is some areas where the military cannot be able to access because of there is no roads, and their vehicles cannot be able to go through to that places. So the response from the security agencies is quite encouraging these days. We are happy with their work. We are happy the way they all try to pay attention to the state, especially the military. And also, if I look at it from the angle of the state government, just last week, the Security Trust Fund was just signed into the law. It's a law which is initiated by the executive governor, and the State Assembly just passed it last week, and the governor assented into the law, which is also another way in helping or in finding the lasting solution of this issue of insecurity states.
What is it that these terrorists want? What is this demand that you speak about?
They want us to negotiate. That's they want to negotiate. That's in form of amnesty. That's what they want, which we all agree that there is no any form of negotiation with them. So that's what they want.
Okay, so from what transpired the last time, with which you then say, look, if going by what happened the last time, that may not be a good way to go. What specifically went wrong with the last time the government tried it?
Yeah, the government of Yari, that's the former governor, Senator Yari, tried such, it didn't work. Secondly, I think, like I said the other time, to be fair to him, the former governor, he was the one that wanted to to solve this problem through negotiation with them. He tried his best, he romanced them, he did whatever he can to them. I think it only lasts for like 4 or 5 months, and later on they go back to what they were doing. So even if you negotiate with them, the major problem is they have different camps, they have different group leaders, and even between themselves, there is no synergy between them. There is no unity. You cannot say if there is a bandit of Saipe local government, for example. If you negotiate with those in Saipe local government, that entire Saipe local government, it doesn't mean that the one in Bukuyum or in the Maradun will not attack you. So that's the major problems. They have different camps, different group leaders, and even between themselves, there's no synergy between themselves. So even if you negotiate, there's no way you can negotiate with them. There's no way. It's too difficult. It's too difficult, and you cannot keep to their demands, because if you negotiate with them, they will task you some amount of money that they want to be paying to them every month, which is not going to be possible. So that's the major problem.
Zamfara continues to confound a lot of people. I mean, for a number of people, they wonder why the situation in Zamfara is intractable. Some people have put it down to the mineral resource that is currently found in Zamfara in large quantities, gold. And they think that that's the reason why, there is an attempt to destabilize the state so that people can, get to those resources unchecked. How big an influence do you think that the mineral resource, that's gold, has on the security situation? And if you think that there is a link, what are some of the solutions that you think that people, governments can come up with to bring this under control?
Actually, the issue of mineral resources is part of the problems that caused this issue of insecurity in the states for over a decade ago. And it's a different stories. There is some that believe what brought this issue is issue between smugglers and the custom. There is also another version between the farmers and the herders. So, but the major ones is the farmers and the herders, and also the issue of mineral resources in the states. Currently, there is this ban from the federal government that no any mineral exploitation in the state. There is nothing. But the major problem we are having, there is still an illegal mining, which is taking place inside those areas, and only people that have access with the bandits that can go directly into those areas and get what they want. So there is so many conflict story about it that the security that's supposed to man the area, they are not doing what they are supposed to do. That's number one. Number two, like I said, all the people that have access to that illegal mining now, they have access to those bandits. So if you look at it literally, it's connected, because now the mining is not legally taking place. Already the federal government has banned it, but still there is some people that is taking the advantage and doing it in that way. So, like I said, like I always used to say, for these problems to come to an end, the insecurity of Zamfara State, number one, the security agencies must take the war to the camps of these bandits. We have to take the war to their camps. We have to just agree. We have to plan on how are we going to destroy those their camps, because they have camps across the 14 local governments of the states all over. Again, we are always preaching and appealing to our people. Our people must cooperate with the security agencies, because our people knew all the terrains of these bandits. They even know their houses within them. And it's part of the major problem that the security are encountering, lack of proper information that will help the security to carry out attacks to these bandits. Sometimes you see whenever the security agencies had the information or the movement of the bandits, by the time they pass through a particular community to that area where the bandit is carrying out attack, or where the bandit is trying to carry out attack, before they got there, the bandit already escaped, because they already had the information that the security are on the way coming to you. So we are trying to sensitize to our people that they have to remove that fear, because sometimes the information they were given to bandits sometimes is out of their hand, because sometimes bandits will tell you that, look, you are doing this vulcanizer in this road. Anytime that security agencies, any of the security that passed on this road, and you didn't call us and tell us that social security is coming, whenever security attack us, we are going to kill your father, we're going to kill your mother, we're going to kill you because we know you, you are so this, you are so that. So you see, it's something that sometimes they put that fear into them. So sometimes they don't have an option unless to try as much as you can to tell the security agencies that, to tell the bandits that the security are coming. So now it's a two ways. Like I said in the first place, the security agencies must do everything possible to carry out attacks to this to their camps.
Let me just ask you, just very quickly, you know, Zamfara directly borders Niger. We've closed the border with Niger over the coup that has happened in that country. Has it had any effect on the security situation and perhaps also the economy of Zamfara State?
Yeah, you see, the reason why we don't want this war, the border we have with the Niger Republic, the security agency of the Niger Republic are trying to man their border, are trying to stop illegal flows of arms through the border to Nigeria. So with this kind of situation that we are with the Niger, we are afraid if they just allow the border open and they did not, they stopped doing what they were doing to help us to prevent inflows of arms to the country. And also the issue of economy, it was really affected, really affected, because there is a lot of businesses that collapse around that area because no movement in and out. They will not allow you they will not allow you to go into, and even Nigeria will not allow you to come. The relationship is no longer there. So the economy of the area is totally paralyzed and is collapsed. And also, there is high rate of this inflows of these arms into the country through that border. So even the incoming of the weapons and also the economic aspect of it is part of the reason why we're appealing to Mr. President that we should not go to war with Niger Republic, especially we that are at the border side. We know we are going to be affected more than any other person, both economically and security.
All right, Honorable Kabiru Amadou, member representing Gusau Safe Federal Constituency. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Right, we will still talk a little bit more about security when we return in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Thank you for staying with us. We are still on security this morning, the security situation, particularly in parts of the north of Nigeria. Colonel Francis Okosun joins us this morning. He's a retired military officer and security consultant. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Colonel.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, I'm pretty sure you listened to the conversation with the Honorable, that my colleagues in Abuja had with him. What would be your own take, particularly on our approach so far? It would seem like, some would have thought, hey, we hadn't heard this spate of unrest or insecurity in a while, and it seems all of a sudden it's coming back. Do you think it's coming back, or it's just one of those things that we have to deal with from time to time?
Well, I think it's just following the pattern that you should predict. We had so much activities in the recent past, politicking, elections, and all that. And then I think that all those are ebbing now. So to be status quo, go back to status quo. Am I surprised that this is happening? No, I am not. Because the issues have not yet been addressed as well they should be. The gentleman who spoke before me was talking about intelligence, information sharing, moles, and all that. That's a critical aspect of this fight that we have not yet dealt with in the correct fashion and manner. Now, I have always come up with my perspective, my approach, my suggestion. You see, this segment, this part of the country, Zamfara, is assigned to certain security agencies, the police, the DSS. There are police officers responsible for this ground, DSS officers who are responsible for this area. Are they on top of their game? Do they cover the ground? A DSS officer in Zamfara should be able to give you actionable information on every square inch of ground upon which you can plan and execute operations. If that is not properly done, then we will be left with the situation we have at hand. I am in sympathy with the people there because they work moving around in circles, motions, no movement. There is a lot of insincerity. If we are serious, we should be able to isolate this problem, reward hard work, and deal with malfeasance. The man whose responsibility or call it is to oversee a particular area should be made to answer if something goes wrong on his watch. Until we do that, we'll be dancing around.
This conversation that you are having with us right now, Colonel, it's not something we're hearing for the first time. We're not hearing this afresh. It's not coming to us as a shock. This information, this conversation around intelligence gathering, people giving or not giving information to security agencies, has been on for quite a while. There are those who would also indicate that, giving information to security agencies is sometimes risky because they give information, nothing gets done, and then there is some kind of reprisal on the communities. So how then do you think this can be handled, particularly from a policy level?
I just helped you with that. I said, the director of state service in Zamfara is responsible for that state. Now, why are there these lacunas in that state? It is he who is to account for that, who is to respond to that.
My apologies. I asked that question, Colonel, because we're not, this thing that you're saying, what you're saying right now, we're not saying it for the first time. We've heard this over and over again, and it would seem like it's either dead silence from the DSS, as you have said, and then nothing gets done, but people keep losing their lives and livelihoods. So what then can be done? Are we helpless with or without any comments or responses from these people? You also talked about the police. Is it that they're powerless to do anything, or they don't just want to do their jobs?
Okay. Now, if you are the director of state service in Zamfara, and a thing like this happens, and you are asked, and you don't respond properly, and you are kicked out, the next person who comes there will not be in a hurry to commit the same offense that you have committed. I am surprised that you have police that would not open up to say what their challenges are. If they come up and openly say what their challenges are, or for that matter, have an honorable police officer who say, I am resigning because I've not got the things to work with. We have to address this. Sir, I am one of those who've come to you to say this same thing that I am saying now. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time you hear of it. If you do not punish malfeasance, you are going to be having this thing recalled.
So whose job will it be to call these fellows to order? In response to that, you may also want to speak to whether or not the governors in each of these states, particularly Zamfara State and in Borno State, where we also hear, that unfortunate incident happened. Do they have any role? Do the governors have a role to play in all of these?
I am not a big fan of these governors as chief security officers of their states for very many reasons, not least of which is the fact that they are incapacitated in terms of knowledge of security. They do not seem to have the political will to deal with these issues when they occur. But I am saying that if you fire the DSS and police officer in a particular place and replace them, the next set of people will act differently. That is what is so simple, but we don't seem to see it that way. We don't seem to see it that way. An occurrence, murder occurs in a place, and all you hear is that we're investigating, we'll bring the culprits to book. Youth couples are kidnapped in Zamfara. And some TRO comes out to say that the CP is determined to fish out the culprits. And it continues like this. It continues like that. We cannot continue like that. Something's got to be done differently. So and that's what I am suggesting.
Colonel, when you say someone needs to be fired, on whose table does the buck stop to ensure that these things get done prestissimo?
Who appoints the DSS to that position? If it's the DG of the DSS, he is the one to take the decision. If he hasn't taken the decision, the political authority that places that DGSS should act.
Well, Colonel, I wonder if that is as simple as that. I'd like to follow up on that, but let's quickly look at another part of the conversation that is, not giving as much attention as it should. In Zamfara, to be precise, where we started this conversation off from, about some months ago, gun runners, those who are supplying weapons to the bandits, on 2 occasions, a number of them were arrested. I wonder if that is not supposed to, isn't that supposed to provide some form of lead in terms of investigation into the source of arms to the bandits comes from? Isn't that supposed to provide some leads to, the origin and by extension, checking it from that place?
It is an open secret how these weapons come in. It's an open secret. A lot of studies have been done on proliferation of small arms. We are not short of recommendations. But here again, how are these recommendations acted upon? The borders are porous, you and I know, and the dilemma is even further sharpened now by the situation that we have in Niger. Niger, a country that has been acting as a blocking force for us, is now going to be ambivalent, lethargic, and then these weapons can come in greater quantities. It's not always been the fact that we don't know how these weapons come in. It's the lack of will and capacity and ability to deal with the situation. Who says they don't know how the AK-47s came into Nigeria? Of course they know how it came in, through the Sahel, Libya, and all those places. But you have the capacity to deal with, to checkmate it, to block it. I mean, in Ajegule in Lagos, you have AK-47s. How has the police in Ajegule been able to isolate, and deal with these issues? Rather than deal with that, they will go about on the streets to arrest innocent people at 9 o'clock in the night. I mean, this is tangential, but I'm saying the issues should be dealt with as they occur. Use intelligence available. If the man responsible is not doing their job, deal with the man.
But, Colonel, is it as simple? These weapons are sophisticated, more sophisticated, in fact, than the ones wielded by men of the Nigerian army that are supposed to protect our territorial integrity. I'm more specific about these suspects that are nabbed. Upon interrogation, perhaps maybe other forms of extreme interrogation, shouldn't they be providing more information as to those who are funding the influx of these weapons into the country, giving identities, so to speak?
Okay, sitting where I am right now, it would be ambitious for me to tell you how they can deal with that. But one thing is clear. When you carry out investigations, interrogations, you get information, you get the leads, you follow up on the leads. If these leads have been provided or have been made available, the interrogating agency or agencies ought to further exploit such advantage or advantages. If that is, I want you to read my lips. If those advantages are not being exploited, then somebody is not doing their job. And that person not doing their job, or those persons, should be held accountable. Do you want me to tell you that the DGSS, the DGDSS should not be called to answer to certain questions, given what we are seeing? And if that were the case, should he keep his job? I don't know the gentleman, but whoever he is, should he keep his job? It is simple. It is very simple. It can be dealt with. It can be dealt with.
Also, in Katsina, recently, the governor had cause to tell the NBA to call its members to order to stop helping bandits evade justice. How much of a problem is that in the fight against the activities of these bandits in Nigeria's north?
I have a few lawyers in the family, and I ask them sometimes, I say, why does a lawyer take up a case when he knows this man is a murderer and he's murdered somebody? Why a man who glaringly has killed, why do you go support the person? They'll tell you it's law. Now, I don't want to be drawn into the judiciary in Nigeria, because some of the things that a layman like I have seen or heard as concerns the judiciary, it's mind-boggling. So if the NBA has been admonished, I think it's left for the NBA members to take heed and do a soul searching. That's all I can say about that.
I'd also like you to speak to the concern that men of the Nigerian army or the bandits, the insurgents, have superior firepower to men of the Nigerian army, which, has been reflected in, much of the attacks, particularly the ones from Niger State in recent times. How much of a problem is that, or more importantly, what's the inside story that you can give us about why weaponry is not prioritized in the fight against insurgency?
Okay, I can tell you for free that there is a first-line scale of weapons that any size unit is entitled to. Sometimes, even in advanced armies, you could have deficiencies and inadequacies, but the standard table of organization and equipment guarantees that a certain scale of weaponry, arms and ammunition is allocated. Now, when I hear it said that the bandits have sophisticated weaponry, I begin to wonder what this sophistries is all about. Now, you have the basic rifles. Whatever the rifle might be, there are many rifles. The basic rifle is the automatic rifle. What is commonplace today is the AK-47. Now, you have support weapons in the form of rocket-propelled grenades. I do not know machine guns, stuff like that. They are organic to the small-size units like platoons and companies, and therefore battalions. I do not know how or what other weapons the bandits will carry Anti-aircraft weapons, yes, that is also available within the army. But you see, what does a bandit need the anti-aircraft weapon for? Immediately. He needs it, but immediately he'll be equipped with first-line weapons, rifles, grenades, machine guns. So when people say that the bandits have sophisticated weapons, more sophisticated weapons, I want a better definition of that. Because I don't think they carry tanks. I mean, bandits cannot carry tanks. Tanks are independent. They are in support of fighting forces. The infantry battalion doesn't own tanks. Tanks are allotted in support of battalions. I can say certainly that bandits don't have tanks. What is the sophisticated weapons they are talking about? Do they have aeroplanes? Do they have fighter aeroplanes? So people should be clearer about these things they say.
Well, you know, there are questions about that. Talking about this heavy artillery, because when you say these bandits don't have weapons, sophisticated, equipment and stuff like that, there are those who would always reference the kind of things that Boko Haram struggle with and even display on the internet. But that's perhaps talk for another day. Allow me to take your perspectives on this story we opened up this morning with, when a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria made a case that soldiers of the Nigerian army operating checkpoints around Ikeja was responsible for the killing of his aide in Lagos on August 5. Of course, as my colleague said earlier in the day, the military has since come out to say, investigations are ongoing. But in a preliminary kind of report from the Nigeria police, that information put out says that it is something done by soldiers in Lagos. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, because one of the information out there is that the soldiers mounted roadblocks or checkpoints on the roads in Lagos. I thought that was the exclusive preserve of the police. But what are your thoughts as someone who's been in the military before?
Okay, roadblock duties are integral to internal security operations in the military. Internal security operation is not embarked upon unless authorized, and it will be at the behest, at the request of the police when they think they are unable to cope with the situation. Now, there will be operation order released authorizing the emplacement of roadblocks or checkpoints. If such was available, if such was made available and you had a checkpoint or roadblock, then those soldiers would be acting within the orders of their superior authority. If, on the other hand, no such exists or existed and the roadblock was mounted, those soldiers will be arrested and should be made to account. So if you're asking me whether roadblocks and checkpoints are things that military men should embark upon, yes, they can embark upon it if they are authorized, if it is encoded in an operation order. And the operation order will be pursuant to assisting the civil authority in the restoration of peace and security.
Does that order also empower them to kill?
There would not be. Are you asking if that would empower them to kill an innocent person?
Because that's clearly what happened in this case. This fellow was abiding by every question that he was being asked, and he was still found killed with bullets right in his body.
All right. If a soldier has killed an unarmed, a soldier has killed someone who does not present a clear and present danger to their operation, that soldier will be charged. There are extant laws to deal with such, and I know that the army will not shield any soldier who was in that recalcitrant.
So far, what we have heard from the military is investigations are ongoing, and there are many Nigerians who are already doubtful and say, hey, we heard this before. How soon, I mean, if you can do this within the next 30 seconds, how soon do you think we should hear about this from the military? Because there are issues, God forbid that tempers will rise over this one, because we've been having, you know, quite some prominence of soldiers on the streets of Lagos in recent time for one reason or the other. How soon do you think we should be hearing from the military to protect their integrity and the lives of those military men who are doing a yeoman's job?
You're asking the wrong person. How soon is for the commander on the ground to say. However, I want it to be known that when you just alluded to that in your last segment of your sentence, these boys are doing a yeoman's job. These boys are doing so much. These boys are going through so much. So if you have one or two cases of people who have fallen out of line, they should be dealt with, but that should not be a barometer to judge the entire army effort towards restoration of peace and security.
And that's the exact reason we asked that question of you, being a retired military officer. Thank you so much for your thoughts this morning. Colonel Francis Okosun is a retired military officer and security consultant. Thank you again for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. So this conversation continues with your own contribution to the program this morning, Kingsley. Oshino, we begin with your tweet. We are only scratching the surface when it comes to insecurities. We need to first fight poverty, unemployment, and income inequalities to start with. If an idle hand is a devil's workshop, then millions of idle hands in Nigeria will create legions of industries.
And this one is from Honorable Alaladi. He says, ministers have taken the oath of office. Nigerians expect them to hit the ground running. But we must be cautious of the fact that many of them are taking up new roles and need time to understudy their ministries. Nigerians can't wait for too long. Quick wins, please.
And Professor Enakena says Nigerians must become more vigilant than they have ever been, more resolute to defend her resources being misappropriated, and become common and unified against the forces of elements involved in deliberate impoverishment of the people, and unified against forces in government misappropriating the resources of the people.
No more excuses from governments. Now that the president has a team to work with and implements government policies and programs, it means there is no room for any further excuse in the delivery of the renewed hope agenda to Nigerians. I wish Mr. President and his team resounding success. God bless Nigeria. That is from Hussein, who writes in from Lagos.
And we say an amen to that.
Yeah, so there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Assault. Goodbye. Thank you. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Indeed, thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
And have a wonderful and productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde.